Good morning, good morning. Good morning. On this 4th of July weekend, as we gather, and may we all be able to celebrate tomorrow the rights of everyone in our country, and not just some. We're so glad to see you, and we're so glad to see the people who are on Zoom. Hi, everybody. We will not leave you up the whole service, but we do have you turned on if you want to turn on your video so we can see you. We're just so pleased to have you with us, and we also welcome the people who are here on YouTube. And as you may notice, we have a masks optional policy here, so please feel free to wear masks. Feel free to do whatever you feel keeps you safe and keeps all of us safe. There are friendship tablets. We love knowing who's with us, and they are the turquoise tablets there. If you can let us know you're here, and also feel free to leave any messages for the staff that you want us to know. And if you're on Zoom or you're on YouTube, please use the chat function to let us know that you're here. We're sorry, the Zoom people, we have a conversation after church, and last week we had technical difficulties and it turned off too soon. And so we're so sorry about that, but we'll be doing it again this week. And so we'll be glad to get a chance to talk to you. And if you are on YouTube, we ask you to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. We've had lots of response from that, and so we're really excited. We have a committee of the week that we are recognizing. And this week, it's the Immigrant Support Committee. And so we have, and I'll ask you, Ann Glenn and Linda Rold Brown, if you could just wave your hands, and they will be out in the mission area after church. If anyone is interested in talking with them, they'd love to talk with you. And with that, I think we will begin our service.
It is in community that we are best challenged to live out the ideals we set before ourselves. Whether framed by sages, prophets, or poets, the ideals we choose to reflect not who we believe ourselves to be, but whom we know we might become. Together, in community, may those who gather with me reflect to me the truth of who I am, that I might be about the task of growing into who I might become. And may we each, in our own human frailty, be gift and mirror to the other. As light into light, we pray. Amen. Please rise as you're able.
And now it's time for our puppet show. If all the children and young at heart could join me. I was talking to Mr. Monkey before we started, and he's not enjoying the hot weather, and I'm sure he'd love any ideas you have for staying cooler. There's also a place for food if anybody's brought food that goes into our food pantry. So.
Stop. Stretch.
You're in a field of hay.
Someone already walked out on me.
No.
Go ahead.
Hello! How are all of you on this hot Sunday morning? Hello. Mwah. Hello. How are you?
Oh, I'm not so good, Hortense.
Wow, that's a surprise. Bummer Bear's unhappy about something.
Oh, now, Mr. Monkey, don't be sarcastic. Bummer, what's wrong?
I was walking to church today, and the birds were laughing at me because I don't have a car.
What do you mean they were laughing at you?
Well, they kept saying, cheap.
Bummer, that's just what birds say.
Oh, it was very hurtful.
Oh, now, Bummer, the birds weren't talking about you. You mustn't take everything so personally.
And the other day, I told this duck that I wanted to be a doctor when I grow up. And you know what he said?
No.
Quack! Quack!
Well, maybe you should honk at him with your car. Oh, I forgot you don't have a car.
Oh.
Mr. Monkey, please don't make jokes right now. Oh, Bummer, please don't get hurt so easily. Birds say cheep and ducks say quack. but none of them are criticizing us. Most of the time when others do say hurtful things, they aren't even thinking about us. They're caught up in their own lives. Does that make you feel any better?
No.
Young people, do you get your feelings hurt sometimes? Of course, we all do. But you are a beautiful child of God. Never let anyone make you feel you are anything less. Jim, do you have a song for us?
Yes.
Is
We
it
thought
a happy
Black
song?
Sabbath's War Pig would be good today. No, not really. What's that? No, we're not going to do. We're not going to do War Pigs. Does anybody here remember count to 10?
Oh, yeah.
So it goes count to 10 when you're angry, count to 10 when you're mad, count to 10 when you don't know what to do. That's how we move from mad to glad. But the important thing is that we're going to 1, 2, 3, 4. So you ready? Count to 10 when you're angry.
Count to 10 when you're mad. Count to 10 when you don't know what to do. That's how we move from mad to glad. Count to 10. Count to 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
That's the tricky part. It's going to come around
Count
again.
to 10 when you're
3. Count to 10 when you're mad. Count to 10 when you don't know what to do. That's how you go from mad to glad. Count to 10. Count to 10.
You ready?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, 10. Rock on.
Thank you. Thanks for coming up.
Sowing the seed. My hand is one with the earth, wanting the seed to grow. My mind is one with the light, hoeing the crop. My hands are one with the rain. Having cared for the plants, my mind is one with the air, hungry and trusting. My mind is one with the earth, eating the fruit. My body is one with the earth.
The prayers of the people offer us an opportunity to really dwell in our connection with one another, to think, feel, and sense that connection that we have in this community, in the broader church, in our broader world, with all human and non-human kin, with the earth and the water, which gives us life. We have several prayer concerns to lift up from this community this morning. James Shepherd is on hospice care and at home. He's being lovingly cared for by Judy and their family. So we lift up James and all those who are going through transition in their lives. We also lift up those who are dealing with new illnesses, new diagnoses, with the struggle and change that brings to our lives. Mark Coates would like prayer for his sister Margaret, who had an emergency kidney surgery last night, but is this morning texting folks, so doing good, that she would continue to heal. We want to continue to hold close in our hearts the parents, family members, friends, community in Uvalde who've been affected by this terrible tragedy, for them in their time of wrestling and grief and desperation. And also to hold in our hearts all of those migrants who died in the van in San Antonio, not just them, but all of those who cross the desert, who die in terrifically horrible conditions. Holding in mind all of that which brought them to that point, which made that the best choice for them, for the disregard and utter lack of care and concern for the people, for the greed that put them there, for the policies that made this an option. May hearts and minds be convicted in love and grief for all of those folks. And as we face this 4th of July holiday tomorrow, for those who are carrying deep grief, concern, worry about the state of our nation, and also those who hold possibility and hope that we might live into the best ideals of what we believe this country can be. Holding all of this in mind, I invite you to take just a few moments to think, love, sense your way into feeling that love out into the world, to feeling that connection, to sending these prayers out. We hold in common all of these prayers, concerns, griefs, joys, spoken and unspoken. Holding in common what it means to be a human living in this world, what it means to be kin with those non-human animals alive and living in this world. Hear our prayers, O mystery greater than ourselves. Amen.
Our scripture reading this morning is from the Gospel of Mark, 11th chapter, verses 15 through 18. When they went on to Jerusalem, Jesus entered the temple and began driving out those engaged in selling and buying. He overturned the money changers' tables, and the stalls of those selling doves. Moreover, he would not permit anyone to carry goods through the temple area. Then he began to teach them, "Doesn't Scripture say, 'My house will be called a house of prayer for all the peoples'? But you have turned it into a den of thieves." The chief priests and the religious scholars heard about this and began looking for a way to destroy him. At the same time, they were fearful because the whole crowd was under the spell of his teaching. Ancient words from our tradition, read for our present day understanding.
Thank you, Eddie. That was great. It's good to have non-wrinkled people in several slots. So, under COVID, it was like, so it's good to have Erica and people who never saw Hee Haw on television. There's hope for the future. Well, as you well know, it's a challenge to think of how to do a 4th of July sermon under our current situation. We still love our country, but many of us, it's not about fireworks and flags. We, like the people, we honor the land, and that doesn't always show up in the patriotism that is crushing so many hopes, dreams. And after the Supreme Court, on so many different fronts, how do we find hope right now? That's going to be a theme for a while until this thing turns. As you know, the Supreme Court is attacking many of our neighbors. They're saying that fetuses are persons, corporations are persons, but you aren't, if you're certain parts of the population. And as horrifying as that is, we have to realize that these people that were handpicked by the Federalist Society are not in any way, shape, or form stopping there. The purpose is to unravel democracy and replace it with the corporate fascism. But you'll still have the flags and fireworks, so don't worry. That was a joke. So where is the hope? For the last 25 years, lots of us have been saying that within the capitalist system, within a national empire that colonizes people around the world, we've built a very painful road for ourselves. And I know people didn't want to hear it 25 years ago, but it's kind of time to wake up and realize that this is the implosion of a predatory economic system. It never could have gone anywhere else. In capitalism, everything is for sale, including the government. When you talk about regulating capitalism, you're plugging into a more basic system of values. And if that's people, then it's not really free market capitalism anymore. So we can talk about labels and this kind of thing. The ancient world didn't have the word capitalism. They had a word usury. And it was a sin. Getting rich by charging other people interest, getting rich by impoverishing other people, getting rich by not paying your workers. In other words, capitalism. And again, we may not want to see that, but if you're about to have a potential wreck, opening your eyes is really helpful. Right? You're already in this situation. Pretending like you're not makes the chances less. We can do this thing, but we have to transform. And I would suggest that Jesus and many, many, many prophets have come to say that. We have to choose people over things. That's seen as a radical socialist kind of thing. Whatever you label, it's basic sanity, right? It's humanity 101. The Supreme Court has ruled that corporations have the right to poison you. And you're democratically elected, politicians cannot protect you. Now, it's obviously more nuanced than that. But we can turn this bus around right now. I'm not saying we can turn the whole political situation around, but we can give our hearts to something better. And I guarantee when you do that 100%, the despair goes away. I promise you that. When you commit yourself to live out your highest value for the rest of your life, I promise you, the sense of helplessness and despair will go away, because you can always do something. You can always do something to make it a better world. One of the things Lenin said, Marx and Lenin were wrong about a whole lot of stuff, but they're pretty right about capitalism. They said fascism is the last chapter, because ultimately they're going to buy the system itself. And Lenin even said a very chilling prediction. He said, the capitalists will sell us the rope with which we will hang them. And that's kind of true, because right now we don't know who's running our country. The dark money may be coming from anywhere in the world. Could be a friend, could be an enemy. So we have to take the steering wheel back. And I want to suggest that that's going to feel a whole lot better than trying to pretend like none of this is happening. You can live a life of meaning, of value, and also joy. When you choose your human family over the machine, when you stop operating as a cog. As a Republican, I think you know what that means. As a Democrat, stop selling people out and calling that moderate. Right? All of us are enslaved because we don't stand up for each other. We've sold each other out. I don't care if you like transgender people, they're part of your human family. You sell them out, your odds are less. I don't care if you care about people of color voting. Right? You may say you do, but if you won't overcome the filibuster, then how serious are you really? When your allegiance is to a system that is robbing people, killing people, you need to leave that system. In the early church, the word ecclesia meant called out. Called out of systems of oppression. I'm hoping I'm going to be able to show you that in our text today. But it's the people in the Christian Testament were occupied. They were colonized. So they couldn't come out and say things. But if you look up what they're quoting when they speak, they're talking about very prophetic passages of the Jewish faith. The passage we're looking at today has a very checkered past. The cleansing of the temple has been seen as an anti-Semitic treatise where Jewish people are seen as loving money. But nobody loves money more than we do, right? I mean, capitalism is the ultimate. That's building your whole value system about what gives you money. I'll never forget, I was giving a talk about gays in the military, and this is when I was just beginning to explore that particular issue. I knew only that human rights were at stake, but I didn't know what transgender meant. I was sitting there getting ready to speak. I was standing by the rabbi that was going to speak after me, and somebody used the word transgender, and I said, what does that mean? At the same time, the rabbi was asking me. So I get up to speak, and a Christian pastor storms the stage, gets about an inch from my face, which as a heterosexual male had never happened to me before, right? I didn't feel my Gandhi roots at that point. I will be honest, my first instinct was to punch the guy out. Would not have looked good in the newspapers. But I was able to put my Gandhi mask back on again. Obviously it doesn't go into my roots if I went to that place. But he gets up an inch from my face and says, if Jesus were here, he would beat you like he beat the money changers. And he's about an inch from my face. And I can be a creep too. And I can do it with a smile. And I said, Jesus didn't beat the money changers. He chased the cattle out with the whip. You need to read your Bible more. Which I don't think Gandhi would have added that last little piece. That's the bully in me trying to tame a bully somewhere else. But I think in this story of a direct action by Jesus, a prophetic act, we realize, and your life is different, so you're going to do it different ways. It may be a conversation for you. It may be something really different that doesn't even look political. But when you teach people that human beings are more important than property, when you stop thinking that peace is being friends with the oppressor at the cost of the oppressed, when you haven't realized that there is no peace without justice, keep saying that. There is no peace without justice. And it doesn't have to be here. As long as they're poor countries somewhere else, they're going to try to get in here. And the truth is, we've stolen all of their stuff over the centuries. What we call the third world used to be great, powerful nations who've been exploited over courses of centuries. And then we look at their weakness and say, well, that proves our way is better. Capitalism is such a wonderful, if they would just be like us. And the truth is, that's where the wealth comes from at some point. So there is a better way. And what I'm going to suggest today in the course of this sermon, and this is the punchline, so if you want to leave, that's fine. But the revolution that we're looking for is returning to that profound love that Jesus talked about, and the profound justice that was barely glimpsed by the founders of this country. The heart of the American dream was life, liberty for all persons. All persons. That kind of got messed up, didn't it? And like now, many of them, when they talk about freedom, that includes them controlling other people, which is kind of a contradiction, isn't it? Freedom for myself, slavery for you, that's not a good deal. So what I'm going to suggest is our passage today is calling us to a revolutionary love and a revolutionary justice, and you cannot separate those two. You do not love another person if you don't want them to have the same rights you have. All of them. Right? And you don't really work for justice if it's not coming out of compassion. If you're just mad at other people and you want to punish them. So, what I want to do is look at this very strange passage. And one of the ways you can quickly decode this Christian text is when you see strange phrases like den of robbers or den of thieves, house of prayer for all people. Google it. You'll be amazed because throughout the teachings of Jesus, he's referring to prophetic texts from the Jewish tradition. And people who were Jewish would hear it right away. The Romans wouldn't be able to hear it. So, something that's very important to realize is the new covenant did not start with Jesus. The new covenant is not Christianity. It's a universal form of justice and love that was born out of the Jewish faith. Isaiah talks about it. Jeremiah talks about it. So the new covenant was already there for a long time before Jesus came to talk and teach. Okay, let's see if we can unpack this thing a little bit. Jesus is at a kind of corrupt religious place. This is not a condemnation of Judaism. Everybody there is Jewish. And we're not going to understand this if we don't realize that the Christian church in the United States is now the problem. with some exceptions. We like to think we're part of the exceptions. But on the whole, fundamentalist Christianity is as far from the teachings of the Sermon on the Mount as you can get on the face of the earth. So, I'm kind of flitting around. Sorry about that. This is from Jeremiah 7. This is where, as Jesus says, has this house which bears my name become a den of robbers to you? This is what he says before that. Do not trust in deceptive words and say, this is the temple of God, the temple of God, the temple of God. If you really change your ways and your actions and deal with each other justly, if you do not oppress the foreigner, the orphan or the widow, and do not shed innocent blood in this place, and if you do not follow other gods to your own harm, then I will let you live in this place, in this land I gave your ancestors. Has this house which bears my name become a den of robbers to you? Jesus belonged to a very rich tradition of prophetic action. And when we realize that, the fact that I don't think he hit anybody with the whip. He's driving, but he might have had to, right? It's like you never aim it at violence, but you also have to realize that sometimes the violence is already there. If people are dying for lack of medicine, that's violence. And you might as well be shooting them. If somebody is so poor that they cannot reach their goals in life just because they were born to a poor parent, you might as well have changed their leg. Jesus was not being violent. He was illustrating the violence within the system so people could see it. That's what Gandhi did. That's what Martin Luther King did. They set up a crisis in the system where the people who had been propagandized into an oppressive system could feel what they were doing to other people. If you tell people they cannot love the person, they cannot marry the person they love. If you tell a woman that her body does not belong to her, that is violence. And I'm sorry if somebody's coming from the Right to Life movement, but as a whole, the Right to Life movement is as violent as any group I know on the face of the planet. Because when you move into somebody else's life and you mess with that, with their medical treatments, the maternal mortality rate goes through the roof. If somebody's in an abusive relationship and you slam the door in their face in the name of family values, that is violence. So Jesus came to the sacred center, what is the church in our day, and helped people feel how they were participating in the violence against other people. How on earth did the church fall into supporting gun rights? Starting with the teachings of the one who said, turn the other cheek. How does that happen? It's when you've been swallowed by something else. When you look like a church and you've come to think that whatever you do must be okay because you're in the house of God. You represent God on earth. And not just Jesus, but prophets all through history have said, no, just because you're a Christian, just because you're religious, does not mean that you're not being violent and dishonest and all of those things. So the first thing to realize is we're talking about an ancient covenant, not just Christianity, but the longing in the human heart for a place for everyone in the human family, everybody. So another quote that comes is this den of thieves. Notice how it talks about foreigners, talks about orphans and widows and this kind of thing. Jesus and the prophets are rejecting every form of hierarchy over another person. Jesus wasn't liberal or conservative. He was an anarchist, a socialist anarchist. He didn't want anyone to be oppressed. Now, I'm not saying that's a system that we can just pull off in the real world. But that's where our heart comes to life. Choosing people over things. Choosing the earth over this corporate power. It fills your heart with life. This is not a sad road that we're being called to. We're being called out of the machine and into our human family. If you're participating in the oppression of any person on earth, a part of your heart is dead. You've numbed it so you can't feel the violence of what you're doing against another human being. Being called out of that oppression is not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing at all. So the second thing that this love that Jesus had, as it grows into justice, it overturns the tables of oppression. Economic oppression, political oppression, and the worst is sometimes oppression done in the name of the church. Then the last gift, I think, that Jesus is giving us in this prophetic act is when he quotes that statement, this is to be a house of prayer for all people. But for all people gets left out of this story. It's often said just supposed to be a house of prayer. Mark quotes the entire passage. Let me go back to Isaiah, because this is a stunning verse. In the ancient world, they didn't really know where diseases came from. And they had this Levitical code that called certain things unclean. Out of all the passages that are there in the Levitical code, the only one the fundamentalist Christians lift up is the one barring homosexuals. But let me read some of the other people that are left out. This is from the purity code. No one has any defect may come near, nor one who is blind or lame or disfigured or deformed. No one with a crippled foot or hand, or who is a hunchback or a dwarf. These are not politically correct terms, but I think the offensiveness is clearer. Or who has any eye defect, who has any festering or running sores or damaged testicles. Now that prohibited eunuchs, right? The passages that prohibit LGBTQ people, originally the eunuch was kind of the logo. This is from Isaiah. Let no foreigner who's bound to God say, God will surely exclude me from God's people. Now listen to this. And let no eunuch complain, I am only a dry tree. This is what God says to the eunuchs who keep my Sabbaths, who choose what pleases me and hold fast to my covenant. To them I will give within my temple and its walls a memorial and a name better than sons and daughters. You get that? The radical thing? Every human being counts. Every human being is our family and deserves a place of honor. The stones the builders have rejected becomes the chief cornerstone. When it talks about the Sabbath, the last thing it means is going to church. This is from Deuteronomy. This is the fourth commandment to observe the Sabbath. This is what it means to observe the Sabbath. 6 days you shall labor and do all of your work, but on the seventh day it's a Sabbath to God. On it you shall do no work, neither you nor your son or daughter, nor your male or female servant, nor your ox, your donkey, or any of your animals, nor any foreigner residing in your towns, so that your male and female servants may rest as you do. Remember, you were slaves in Egypt, and that God brought you out of there with a mighty hand and outstretched arm. Therefore, God has commanded you to observe the Sabbath day. There's nothing in that about church. There's nothing in that about religion. It's all about treating your human family with respect and dignity. They couldn't free everybody, but you see that that's the intent. That's where that flower blossoms. Our country was born by slaveholders talking about freedom. We don't need to go back to their interpretation of the Constitution. That's the dumbest thing we could do. What we need to do is look at the seed of this vision that they had. Life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness for all persons. Isn't that where we need to go? Well, this is Happy 4th of July. It's not a time without hope. I don't know that we can turn anything around in our lifetimes, but some of the noblest souls who've ever lived spent their lives carrying a torch through the darkness. And the people that did that were happy people. That's most of humankind. As we lose privileges in this country, as we fall out of this place of power, we're falling into our human family. We are only risking slavery because we didn't stand up for one another. Democrats reaching the aisle and compromising with fascism is not going to save us. We need courageous champions who stand up for their whole human family. But politicians can't do that alone. Yes, vote, but 364 days of the year can be given to activism. Find a grassroots organization that lives out your values and join them. And you will find hope, you will find meaning, and a peace inside from walking your path. The secret is return to the radical love that Jesus talked about, and realizing that love has to grow into radical justice for all people. Well, that's my struggles with the text. You're invited now to spend a moment reflecting how you would interpret them.
As we come to our time of offering, we are always reminded to consider the ways in which we can be a loving presence in our world. And in particular, this week, we are offering up some time for people who are still reeling from the court decision on Roe versus Wade to gather together here in the sanctuary. We've got some time set aside tomorrow and Tuesday night and again Saturday morning if you want to come and gather, because I think we have to get beyond some of our anger and sadness that we're feeling right now in order to be able to come together with a plan of how we want to address this as the St. Andrews community. So we invite you to take part in that, and in any way that you can come up, which helps to make our world a better place. That's what offering is all about. And of course, part of it is about keeping this community viable. And so we invite you, when you're able, to do that also. But the big thing is, how can you make life better right where you are for those around you? So if the ushers would please come forward.
Love as I have loved you. This is a new commandment I give you, to love. Love one another with all your heart. By this I will know, by this I will know you are mine. Then build a house. You are my hands, you are my feet and my voice. For when you help all those in need, you do it for them and for me. Love one another, love as I have loved you. This is a new commandment I give you, to love. Love one another with all your heart. By this I will know, by this I will know you are mine. Hear, oh, hear me. See the suffering, then share a word. Hear, oh, hear me. See the homeless, then build a house. You are my hands, you are my feet and my voice. For when you help all those in need, you do it for them and for me. Love one another, love as I have loved you. This is a new commandment I give you, to love. Love one another with all your heart. By this I will know, by this I will know you are mine. Please join me in our offering dedication. May our giving be stirred by what we celebrate as a community, our sense of justice, our cooperation, our empathy, and our love. We dedicate our gifts of prayers, presence, resources, and service to continue the ministries of St. Andrew's and help make our world a better place for all. Please rise as you're able.
You may be seated. You also may remember that last week we had a new member meeting after church, and we had 4 people join. And we have a program now at St. Andrew's where when someone joins, they get matched with a St. Andrew's friend. And so today we're going to have a St. Andrew's friend introduce one of our newest members. And so I'd like to invite Linda Rold Brown to come up and introduce Carol Wooley. Carol, you don't have to say anything. She's introducing you today.
But she can if she wants to.
Well, this is a special moment in the life of our congregational family to welcome someone in with us, to join us. And I got to meet with Carol this week, and she told me that she moved to Wells Branch here, this community, from Chicago. She came in March, and she was still unpacking. She has family here. She had visited often, and she decided after her retirement to come here to live. I asked her how she spends her time, and she said, still unpacking. But when I asked her about her hobbies and interests, she told me that she loves murder mysteries. And during the first 2 years of the pandemic, she did a lot of reading of murder mysteries. Career-wise, she worked in Chicago's public schools. She was telling me how she taught grades 1 through 8. She's also a science teacher. She had, oh, by the way, when she taught first grade, she had 50 of them, 50 first graders. Yeah. I had the feeling there was more to tell. And so I said, back in my Chicago days, I had my roommate who taught at Englewood High School. And then she told me I was a principal at Englewood High School in Chicago. And she was recognized for the work that she did there. And I didn't get a chance to tell you this, but I called my roommate this week. And of course, she very well remembers you. And she said, oh, of the 12 principals I had in my 31 years of teaching, she was the best. She was my favorite. That she was a dynamic leader. And I know that had to be the case because the other thing she said was that, and she stayed with us for 10 years. Not many did that. And I know that there was something about the quality of the work by the fact that she got a promotion to be area superintendent in an area that included Englewood High School. What stands out to me is that Carol knows what a difference giving young people an opportunity can make in their lives. When I asked what brought her here to St. Andrews, she said, well, it was our signs and our banners that were out front. Like her pastor, the Reverend Wright in Chicago at Trinity UCC Church, where she had attended. They had signs and banners like that out front. And she sang in the choir, and she was president of the ladies' choir. Carol said she always went to church. She was baptized by immersion in a Baptist church at 9 years old. As you've already seen, she's singing in our choir. She is also interested in participating in our theater group. When I asked what she would like people at St. Andrews to know about her, she said, I am an open book. Carol, I want to give you a big welcome. We're so glad you came to join us. You are a gift to us.
I was so amazed when I found out that she came from the Church of Jeremiah Wright and chose us. But then when I said that, she said, no, he came to my church. So she was there first. Her husband nominated Jeremiah Wright to the, in Texas, the mountains are a lot smaller. So, well, as you go out into this week, I hope that you feel that you have an important gift to give the world. If you joined a health club, you wouldn't feel like you wanted to start with 300-pound weights. So every little thing you do, every thought that you make, every word that you say in kindness is planting the seeds of a different world. There are times when you need to rest, there are times when you need to heal. But every little thing you do makes a huge difference. So as you go into this world, may you realize you are a gift of light and love in a world that is hurting right now. And people are very afraid they don't know what to do, and they're trying to get back to America that never was. You can be a beacon of America yet to be. Happy 4th of July. Have a great week. Thank you.